Hi, I'm Shonda Ramsey, your host and fellow indie author. Are you overwhelmed at the thought of publishing your book by yourself? Has fear kept you frozen in place, unable to write even the first word of your book? Not knowing the steps you need to take shouldn't stop you from writing. That's why I've asked for help from some amazing industry professionals, published authors, and others who are in the same situation as you to share their knowledge on the self-publishing process. Welcome to Dear Indie Author, where we inspire creative independence in every writer. Hey everyone, I am here with my friend Jennifer. Jennifer, I'd like to get started with some rapid fire icebreaker questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What is your favorite spot to RV?
Ouray, Colorado.
Mm. Do you prefer a gas grill or campfire cooking?
Gas. My husband does all the cooking outside.
I like it too. Are you someone who likes fall or spring?
Well, I like fall now because spring was pretty rough coming across the country. We had a lot of wind and you're chasing storms, so probably fall.
Fall. What is your favorite place to write?
I love to write in coffee shops.
Mm, that's a great place. Are you someone who likes a funny story or a one-liner?
A funny story.
Hmm, that's great too. Do you prefer rain or snow?
Well, considering the fact we live in an RV, I prefer rain because snow gets really cold. We've done it before, and it's, 19 degrees in an RV is not pleasant. So I would say rain.
Yeah, I'm sure. What is your favorite book and what did you learn from it?
Hmm. I don't really have a favorite because I just like all kinds of different books. I like the ones where people tell their story. I like the ones that are romance novels.
Mm.
Anything with a, happily ever after, I'm all for it. But something with meaning as well.
Yeah, I like that too. That's a great thing for sure. Describe your writing style in 3 words.
Seat of my pants.
Mm, that's a good one. I like that.
It's 4 words, but seat of my
I
pants.
understand though because I tried to pants a book too, so I totally get it. I know what that means. What is your favorite hobby?
We used to be quilting. Um, before we sold our home and went full time in an RV. Now I do more cross stitch.
Mm,
That's my when I just want to relax. I'll do cross stitch because it's small. I can do it in an RV.
yeah, you can take it with you.
Yep,
What is your guilty pleasure?
chocolate.
Mm, that's a great one. What's your favorite movie?
The wedding planner.
Oh, yeah, that's a good movie too. I like that one. What is one word to describe you?
Happy, I would hope.
I like that.
Even with all I've been through, happy.
Yeah, that's great. I
Mhm.
like that. Would you like to take a minute and just introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jennifer Skinnell. I am an author. I'm a travel blogger. I'm also a travel writer for several magazines. I have lived full time in this RV with my husband for 5 years, and we travel the country. And I write about the places we go to, but I also write contemporary romance, cozy mysteries, and I just wrote and published my book in January, Don't Wait, about my breast cancer journey from last year. That's who I am.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. You have a lot that you have done, which is great. Let's talk about your Hope Springs romance series. Can you share the inspiration behind the series and how you came up with the charming small town setting that you put it in?
So I started thinking about this. I'd always wanted to write something, but I needed a really good story and I couldn't come up with it. So then in 2016, this story started formulating in my brain about this small town group of women who get together to quilt. Um, and it's contemporary, it's not like Amish country quilting. And the older ones give advice to the younger ones about romance and life. And I mean, the age ranges are in the 20s up to their 80s. The two older women, the oldest women in the stories are based off of my daughter-in-law's grandmother is Rosie in the stories, and my grandmother is Myrtle in the stories, and she's actually was her name, and that their personalities are based off of those two ladies. And the way the town came about was we were actually in the small town of Edenton, North Carolina,
Mm.
and came into the town to do a biking event. My husband and my son were doing a bike ride, and I we pulled in. I'm like, this is the town I had in my head, and I started snapping pictures all over this town because this was exactly the town that I had in my head for this story. Now I make it in Virginia because we were living in Virginia at the time, so I know more
Yeah.
about the wine country in Virginia and all that stuff that comes up in the stories. But that was the small town that I had in my head, and I always wanted to do a small town because I'm from a small town. So
Yeah.
you write what you know, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I do throw in some visitors that come in that are past lives from that lived in the towns. They kind of in the town of Hope Springs. They help tell the story. They help push the story along. So there are some ghosts that show up,
That's
but they're
pretty neat.
fun ghosts. They're not haunted ghosts.
Yeah.
They actually
Yeah.
help me tell the story.
Yeah.
By the time I got done with this 5 book series, I was crying when I
Mm.
finished the last book because I'm like, I've been with these women for 4 years. I think I did all 5 of them in 4 years. And, I really got to know them and I
Yeah.
was going to miss them. I knew I was going to miss all of these ladies.
Mm.
So that's the whole premise of the story. It's like that Hallmark thing. I swear. And people compare, and I'm like, I know Hallmark, call me. I would love to have my stories made into a movie at some point. But that's kind
Absolutely.
of what I was thinking was it was a movie in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like with a series that kind of flows like that, which is really neat to do. And I can relate to falling in love with your characters and wanting to not see them end. Like it's really hard to end
Right.
it, but that's really neat that you did that. The advice quilting bee plays a significant role in your books. How did you develop this unique group of characters and what impact do they have on the town of Hope Springs?
They tell the story. You know, the older ladies are there all the time, and there are certain characters that are in every book, and then I bring in younger ladies that came back from college or whatever, and all of the men that show up in the book come from the large town like DC or wherever, um, and those are those ladies are putting them all together,
Mhm.
matchmaking kind of deal. Um, but they're all women who are strong women. A lot of them have their own businesses in the town, and since it's a small town, the town is really relying on them to keep going.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so they each have either a bakery or a secondhand shop that actually a lot of them shop at the quilting store, Rosie's Quilting Emporium. So they're all or they work as a nurse in the medical center, or, that kind of thing. So one of them does a bed and breakfast, and one of them. So I wanted women who were strong, independent, but also were trying to find love. And I actually have a little thread of where Myrtle has a relationship going in the background too, and she's in her 70s at the time. So
That's
that's
really neat. So
yeah.
she gets a chance too. That's really neat.
Mhm.
Sounds like a great series, so I'm definitely gonna put it on my list to read. I haven't read it yet, and just in looking it up this week while preparing for our interview, I'm like, I have to read these books. So I definitely want to read them. Let's talk about your Palm Shores RV Resort Mystery Series. So, what prompted you to transition from writing romance to cozy mysteries with the Palm Shores RV Resort Mystery Series?
So I wanted a challenge. I'd read some cozy mysteries, and I'm like, I want to see if I can write one of these and have it make sense and come up with
Yeah.
the ideas that you need to for a cozy mystery. So I kicked around the idea of it being some kind of an RV related thing because by then we were full time and we were moving around the country. But I was trying to figure out. But we would always stay at an RV park in Florida for 3 months out of in the winter with the snowbird thing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, it would be really interesting to do something in an RV resort. And how many times can you have somebody die in an RV resort and
Right.
still have people come back to stay there year after year?
Yeah.
Um, so that's really where it came about. So I started coming up with the idea, and so Death by Golf Cart um, is the first in the book in the series, and I was working on the second one, which we'll talk about later, um, when I was diagnosed last spring. So I put
Mm.
that one aside and ended up doing in my other book.
Mm.
But that's where
Okay.
the idea came about. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And
Yeah, to see if you can challenge yourself for something different.
right,
I like
right.
that. I like that. Can you tell us more about Maggie Dunham and her unique approach to solving mysteries in Death by a Golf Cart?
So Maggie, she is the recreation director. Her parents own the RV resort, and she has a little cockapoo. I had a cockapoo,
Mm.
but this her little cockapoo's name is Mitzi, and Mitzi is a psychic. So she actually helps Maggie with clues, barking, or whatever to help solve these mysteries. And Maggie's boyfriend is the sheriff, and he's like skeptical, but then things happen to him too. And he's like, okay, I get it now. But, I need more evidence than just your dog barking to
Right.
solve this mystery. But yeah, she's her little sidekick, and she loves riding around on the pink golf cart.
That's funny. I like that. Let's talk about your other book, Don't Wait. So, Don't Wait is a deeply personal memoir. What motivated you to share your journey through breast cancer and living full time in an RV?
So I needed a why
Mm.
for why I got cancer. So my story actually started in 22, where I had had my mammogram. And part of living in the RV life is you have to make sure that you follow up with all of these things every year. So
Right.
we made Columbus, Ohio, our medical home base. Actually, it's Dublin, Hilliard, if you're familiar with that area.
Hmm.
And that's where all of our doctors are. So every 6 months, we go back there. And in October or September of 22, I'd had my mammogram, and we left because usually they're normal. And on the way to our next destination in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, I got the call that they needed a follow up. I said, we're already gone. We're not coming back until next spring. And so I needed to find a place on the road to get an ultrasound and a mammogram. Luckily, we were headed to Washington, D.C. area where we used to live, and I ended up at that place where I used to go. They did the mammogram, said there's nothing there, and would not do a ultrasound, which is what the people in Ohio wanted.
Hmm.
I said, okay, well, if nothing's there, great, let's keep continuing on our journey. My husband planned this epic trip in 23 where we were going to leave July 8th and head to the beach with our kids, and then off to like South Dakota, all that whole area up there,
Hmm.
Glacier, hit all of them, Utah, all the fun stuff. Because we were going to be we had a trip planned to do the Tournament of Roses parade at the end of 23. So he made this whole big thing. And then I thought, I want to get my mammogram. They were doing this whole yearly thing, right? Every 365 kind of deal. We would have been at Glacier National Park then, and I know there's no mammogram places at Glacier National Park. So I called my insurance and I said, can I do it early? And they said, yeah, you can do it whenever you want, your calendar year. So I did it when we got back to Ohio, like 2 days after we arrived. I had my mammogram in May, and figuring, it was going to be fine. Got a call, or actually a my chart note from my doctor saying they want to do a follow up and call this number. So I called this number, and it was Dublin Cancer Center.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, this isn't good. You know, I didn't feel anything, but this is not, what I was expecting. So I called them, and this was a Friday. They scheduled me for the following Monday. I had a follow up mammogram, ultrasound in the morning, met with the nurse navigator who said, now you're going to come back this afternoon and meet with Dr. Mark Kripe, he's our breast surgeon, and then you're going to do a biopsy all in the same day.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. 2 days later, I found out that I had cancer, breast
Mm.
cancer. So I was like, okay, well, this is fine. We canceled a lot up until November 7th when we were arriving Sedona. So we canceled everything up until then. We had to find a place to stay in Ohio for who knew how long, because we didn't know whether I was going to need chemo or radiation, any of that
Right.
at that point. And so we did find a small campground that we had stayed at before that was right there in Galloway, right near everything else. And my family, our kids and our grandkids, live in Hilliard, so we were close to my daughter and son-in-law. And we just started planning everything. And the non-negotiable I had was the beach trip, so I could get the family beach picture with my kids. That was like
Yeah.
I told my doctor, I'm like, that's a non-negotiable. And Dr. Kripe was wonderful because, and I write a lot about this in the book. He asked me what was my goal. He figured out, okay, you live in an RV, you travel the country. What is your end goal? What's important to you? That was so we can make a plan so that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. So I ended up saying, okay, I want to be whatever is the quickest thing for me to do to be back on the road with no complications. And so I decided on a double mastectomy with aesthetic flat closure, which means no reconstruction.
Mhm.
And he said, I agree with that. And so he said, well, we'll put you on the anastrozole, which is my tumor was hormone fed, so they had to do kill all the hormones basically. That's what
Right.
we're doing to kill the cancer and any other cells that might be floating around in there somewhere. So we did that. I did the beach picture 2 days after we got back from the beach. I had my surgery on July 25th. 2 weeks later, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning because I'm like sleeping in a recliner out here because I couldn't lay flat. We had the
Yeah.
whole issue with recovery. And I was supposed to see him that morning, and I woke up with this book in my head,
Mhm.
and with God saying, "You need to write this book." And I'm like, "That's my why, is this book," and sharing my story with others so that they know that what they're going through is normal in a very abnormal situation none of us has to be in.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the intro right then at 3:30 in the morning. My husband comes out at 5:30. He's like, "What are you doing up already?" I'm like, "I've been up since 3:30 with." So I went to my 2-week checkup with Dr. Kripe, and I said, "I'm going to write this book." And he's like, "This is great because we don't have enough books from the patient's point of view."
Mm.
And so I started the book from way back in 2018 when we decided to start going full time with the don't wait to enhance your life um, by just getting out there and doing something. Don't wait to change your life, which we did drastically. You don't have to do it that
Yeah.
drastic. And then don't wait to save your life, where I didn't wait. I probably, if I hadn't gone in May, I would have waited until a whole nother year until
Yeah.
we got back to Ohio because I wouldn't have done it out on the West Coast somewhere, right?
Right.
And then who knows what would have happened. So that's the premise for the book. That's how I came up with the story. And well, it's my story, but I finished it in 2.5 months.
Wow.
Um, a lot of it was pretty much real time when I
Yeah.
got to the,
Yeah.
recovery part and telling everything. But yeah, and
That's
Dr. Kripe wrote
incredible.
the foreword for it. So
Yeah.
and we share it a lot.
That is amazing. That's definitely something hard to do as well. How did writing Don't Wait differ from writing your fictional series, both emotionally and creatively?
It was easier to write Don't Wait because I didn't have to make anything up,
Yeah.
right? It was real time. It was so I felt like it was easier. It's a much shorter book. It's only like 20 some thousand words.
Mhm.
The other books are obviously 50 to 60. So emotionally, it was actually therapeutic for me to write this book because um, I was able to get it out of my head rather than sitting there dwelling on stuff. It gave
Right.
me something to do. You're
Mhm.
sitting there for like 2 months. For the first month, you can't like for the first 2 weeks you can't raise your arms. You can't so then when I started writing the book 2 weeks later, um, I still couldn't do a whole lot physically because you're recovering
Right.
and it's a long recovery. So I needed it gave me something I could do where my husband would be like, okay, I want to go for this bike ride down in Springfield, Ohio. I'm like, hey, there's a coffee shop there. I can go sit and write while you go ride your bike. And that's what I did. I did a lot of that.
That's really
And
neat.
so it was just very therapeutic for me to write this story.
Mm. What a great story to do too. I that's another one I want to read too because I just like to read other people's experiences and I think that there's a lot that you can help other people going through similar situations, be able to find the strength to even get through it. I think that a lot of times it's a hard thing when you're first told of your diagnosis and then, what do you do next? So it'll be a great book to recommend to people too.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have written contemporary romance, cozy mysteries, and a personal memoir. How do you approach writing in such diverse genres, and what challenges do you face?
Well, like I said, I'm a kind of a seat of the pants writer.
Mhm.
So I would do an outline, um, and for the romance series and for the cozy mystery, I follow the outline a bit closer because you have to with the red herrings and the clues and those kind
Yeah.
of things. You can't screw that up. Um, but with my romance series, I would literally just sit and write. I had certain things I knew I wanted them to end a certain way or go a certain direction, but I didn't have the outline that a lot of people do. I didn't have pictures of, you know, mine's probably not the best version of how to write a book because I don't have like the pictures of the people and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just go. But I will say I do have one story if I have time to tell it. In 2016, when I decided to write the Hope Springs romance series, I had this meeting with my aunt and uncle, just this chance meeting, kind of a don't wait moment
Mm.
in Ohio at Panera for breakfast one morning. I wasn't supposed to see them in that trip that we were going to Ohio for, but I saw them anyway. And my aunt used to work for Avon Books. And she said, "Oh, I love this premise. I'll do whatever I can to help you." And I said, "Okay, that's great." And 2 weeks later, she passed away in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And so she never got to read any of my stories. But as I was writing these books, if I would get stuck, on something, I would say, "Aunt Jetta, help me out here." I would go back the next day and read what I wrote and not remember writing that.
Wow. That's
And I'm like,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of help
Yeah.
on
That's
writing.
really awesome. Yeah.
For the cozy mystery, I definitely stick more to the outline because of that. And obviously with Don't Wait, um, I did stick to the outline because I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I had certain things in that book
That you touched on.
that I touched on. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Outlining is so important for sure. I think a lot of people, some people don't do that part, and I know I myself tried to do like a pantsing book all the way through, so I skipped outlining and just sat down to write, and man, was that hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I decided that that's not for me. I have to have an
Yeah.
outline.
Right. I mean, and with those books, I never know. Like I can sit and write the outline, but I go so far off track that whatever I had for the ending is nowhere near how we ended up finishing that book. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's pretty neat.
yeah.
With so many books and projects as well as RVing full time, how do you manage your writing schedule and stay organized?
So I don't have a writing schedule.
Yeah.
I just kind of, if I have time to sit and write, I write. Um, and a lot of times my writing is on a steno notebook. I
Mm,
handwrite. Most of Don't Wait was handwritten. And then I go back
awesome.
and type it in and kind of edit as I'm typing it in. A lot of the cozy mystery is the same way because I like to go sit at the picnic table, or if we're in a really great setting, I want to go and enjoy that view while I'm sitting there
Mhm.
writing the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
uh, and so I don't really have a set schedule. That's probably my downfall is that I don't, because and when you're RVing and moving, it's a little bit harder to have a set schedule. So I try to at least set aside an hour or two a day. Doesn't always happen, but I try.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that's hard because you got to pack up and move and everything. So I
Mhm.
understand
You
that.
you know an RV, yeah.
I do. Yeah. We have an RV, so I totally understand that whole thing. Packing
Mhm.
up and moving from place to place, it is challenging. And I I know even myself, I've tried really hard to stick to my writing schedule while RVing, and you just can't. You do your best.
Right.
Definitely. Your motto is don't wait to enhance, change, or even save your life. How has this philosophy impacted your life and writing career?
Huge. I didn't actually come up with this motto until after this last book was published.
Mm,
Like a lot of things come to my head when I'm laying there at night.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I like that. So then I have to get up and write it. And that was basically, I'm like, okay, we enhanced our life by doing what we were doing before we decided to RV, and then we started part-time RVing. That's what's enhancing our life. Well, then we did the big change where we sold the house and went full-time RVing. So that's a big change your life. And then the save your life, obviously, is don't wait to get those medical checkups that you need and all of those medical appointments. Stay, ahead of them, um,
Yeah.
because you just never know. I'm living proof that if I had waited a whole another year, who knows?
Right.
That tumor, it didn't go into my lymph nodes. I didn't need chemo or radiation at that. So yeah, so that's huge to just make sure that you keep up with all your medical stuff.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Since your cancer diagnosis, you've become an advocate for health and well being. How do you use your platform as an author to spread this important message?
Um, I write blog posts, and actually, I have one coming out um, soon. That's actually a letter from the breast cancer patient to the breast surgeon,
Mm,
because I find on the forums that I'm only on two, a lot of these women aren't as lucky as I was, where I got a very empathetic, compassionate, and caring physician who listened to me, who asked me questions like, what is your goal? What, that like I was talking about. And a lot of women don't. And so I want to use my platform to also educate the surgeons
mm,
about the patient. Um, I also learned after the book, Dr. Kripe and Dr. Halaharvi, I had two surgeons. They worked together, and so I was only under for 2 hours. Um, one did one side, one did the other, and they told me that they didn't realize, they do the surgery. 2 weeks later, they see the patient, and then they don't see you for 3 months. They don't
mm.
know what's going on in your life in those 3 months and with your recovery, because we have nurse navigators that we could call. And so they said with this book, that was very enlightening to them to see, oh, this is what my patient's going through with her physical therapy that she has to do, and
Yeah.
how she's dealing with medications and all that kind of stuff. So I want to use my platform as an author to not only educate other patients about what they can do, but also educate the medical community about this is what we're going through. Um, I also, you're an RVer, I am now going to different Grand Design. It's manufacturer for
Mhm.
RIV, and I think yours as well, right?
Yeah, ours is Grand
Yeah.
Design.
Um, so they have rallies around the country, and I am now doing talks at those rallies. I did one in
Mhm.
Michigan. I'm going to be doing one in Ohio. I just got invited to do one in Ontario. My husband is like, he's a planner, and our whole like year was planned out. And then they were like, "Hey, can you come to Ontario in like this second week in September?" And like, well, throw those points up. We're going up to Ontario. Hey, the next week, can you go down to Ocean City for their rally? And like,
Yeah.
throw whatever plans we had to go after that. So he's like
Yeah.
going crazy. But so I have like 3 or 4 now totally scheduled, and I have more that I'll be working on for next year. Um,
Amazing.
just telling people the importance of keeping up with your medical stuff, and not waiting to get out there and do what it is you want to do with your life,
Mm.
because you just never know. My
Yeah.
aunt was a perfect example of that. You just never know what's going to happen. So that's how I use my platform. Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
wonderful. This was my why for why I got breast cancer.
Yeah. So now you can use your experience to do good to help others, which is such a beautiful thing. I love that.
Thank you.
What advice would you give to aspiring authors who are just getting started?
Don't be afraid. You know, don't be afraid of rejection. Don't be afraid, because I was rejected by Hallmark. Don't be afraid
Mhm.
to put yourself out there,
Yeah.
and have other people read it when you're done with it. Um, but definitely give it a try. You never know. As an indie author, you're not going to be rich. I'll tell you that right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is more of a love, not a money making venture.
Hmm.
Um, but if you have something to say, somebody else wants to hear it. So
That's great
just,
advice. I
yeah.
like that. How important is it to have a support system like beta readers or editors? And how do you suggest authors find and work with them effectively?
So beta readers, I think, are very important, especially for the continuity of the story.
Hmm.
I actually have a little handful of friends that have read all my books, so I trust them. And if you want to go with somebody you don't know, that's up to you. But that's just what I did. As far as editors go, I paid for editors in the first couple of books, and then I there were some issues,
Mm.
and I think it might have been on my part of not knowing. Okay, she's an editor, not a proofreader.
Oh, yeah,
There's a difference,
there is. Yeah.
and I did not know that. Um, so I kind of was like, okay, let's. My daughter is now my editor. She doesn't charge me for one, so
Mm.
um, but she didn't even edit this last book. She had no time to edit Don't Wait. So I was kind of on my own on that one. But I do have four people who read that book, and their testimonials are in the story or at the beginning of the book. Um, so I think it's important to have other people read your work,
Hmm.
but make sure you do have, if you can't afford it, hire a proofreader. Um, if not, take your time and do it yourself, and put it away, bring it back out, put it away, bring it back out. That's what I usually do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. As an indie author, what strategies have you found most effective for self-publishing and marketing your books?
Social media is
Hmm.
a big one for
Yeah,
marketing.
it is.
Amazon is where I go for all of that's the only place. I had put Don't Wait, the ebook, on Barnes and Noble and on Apple, but I pulled them off because I wanted to put it on Amazon on Kindle Unlimited, because I found that people who um, are overseas, Kindle Unlimited is really weird.
Hmm.
So I wanted it, or the ebooks are more expensive, but they're like, hey, we could afford to read, through Kindle Unlimited because of the way that's set up. So I wanted to put all of them back on. I pulled them all off, and then I put them all back on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm strictly Amazon, um, mostly because I'm lazy as far as that goes, and it's easy for me. I figured out how to do it. Um, if you're going to do the ebook, they have, I forget what they call it, but it's something. It's EPUB on Amazon, where you just
Right.
plug your stuff in and it does it for you. I still format my own paperbacks because I didn't like the way theirs looked as a paperback. Um, but you have to learn how to do all of that and
Yeah.
take your time and figure out all the nuances of Amazon, because my books get thrown back. I never uploaded a perfect book the first time.
Hmm.
And they'll tell you the parts that you need to fix and order those the proofs until you
Before,
make
yeah,
sure you
get a
got, yeah,
proof. That's
yeah.
great advice too, especially if you're doing a lot of the work yourself. You want to see to make sure, that it aligns in there. So I am a designer. I design covers and format. And so I understand that whole process of printing and making sure that it looks correctly on print, because sometimes it doesn't. Even when I do it, like there's been times when I've printed it and I'm like, what is happening? So it's easy even as a designer for that to happen. So when you're doing it yourself, you definitely want to get your proof so that you can make sure that it looks how you want it to look.
Right.
Yeah. Have you brought in others to help you with the publication of your book? Anybody else other than what you've already talked to? And if so, how do you feel having help was versus doing everything on your own?
No, I haven't had anybody else. I, well, I take that back. I do have a cover designer for the Cozy Mystery series. I did all of my other books. I've done my covers myself on Canva.
Hmm.
Uh, but the Cozy Mystery series, I wanted it to be a drawn, because that's kind of Cozy Mysteries. They're all like artistically drawn covers. A
Right.
lot of them are, and
Yeah.
I had specific things that I wanted on the cover that made sense in the book, which I can't do on Canva. So I did pay for a friend of mine who's an artist, and she does my covers for those. She'll be doing my next one. She just doesn't know it yet. Um,
I'm sure she'll
I
love
haven't had
it.
a chance to talk to her. But that's the only outside person that I use now, besides my daughter and my beta readers.
Did you find working with someone else was actually more helpful for you to offload that from your plate?
Yes,
Yeah.
especially because I'm not an artist.
Yeah, yeah. I think so when we talk indie authors, I'm an indie author as well. And so we wear all the hats, and it's really hard also to like let go of some of those hats for me, especially because I want to do all the things, even though I know I shouldn't do all the things. And so I think sometimes once you do it once, you kind of you find your people and you can bring them in to keep, helping you with future books, which is really great. So I think that it's a beautiful thing. I call that collaborating. I like to have collaborators on my book, and I just remind myself that it just makes the book even better by bringing other people in with their gifts, to help me out. So I think it's neat that you do that. Are there any upcoming projects or initiatives you're excited about sharing?
Yes, I finished the second book in my Cozy Mystery series. It is called Death on the Pickleball Court.
Ah.
And I am now in the editing phase of that. I hope to have it out by the end of the year because this was the book I was working on, and it was about halfway through when I was diagnosed.
Mhm.
And I put it away. And then when I started writing Don't Write, I really put it away because I wanted to get that one done and published by January. That one came out in January. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now, um, is finishing that one up and getting
That's
the
neat.
cover made and getting that one out there.
That's exciting. That'll be really fun. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Just make sure that whatever you do, you know, like my motto is, don't wait, give it your all. Do if you're an indie author and if you really want to do it, don't be afraid. As far as your medical stuff, make sure you keep that up to date. And if you travel, and I found this out from my surgeon, from Dr. Cripe, and you have medical stuff, if you get copies of CDs of everything,
Mm,
because he said even on a thumb drive, we're not allowed to put a thumb drive in our computers at the Ohio Health. So he said, make sure you tell people, get your films on CDs. So that way the next person that needs to look at them has them rather than just a report so they
yeah,
can compare pictures. So
that's
that's
great
important.
advice. Yeah, that's good advice. Can you please share with everyone where they can find you?
So it's jenniferskinnell.com, and that is my website. I also have our travel website is theramblingquilter.com, and I'm also on Facebook, Jennifer Skinnell author and the Rambling Quilter, and I'm on Instagram, same thing, Jennifer Skinnell author and the Rambling Quilter. So I think that's
Perfect.
it.
That's perfect. I'd love for you to share the letter you wrote to our audience as we close up today's interview.
Okay. Dear indie author, welcome to the crazy but amazingly rewarding world of indie publishing. Some days you'll want to give it up, but don't. What you have to say is important to someone out there. Also, don't rush it. When you get close to the end of your piece, you'll be so excited and want to get it out there. Put it away for a couple of weeks and then start your editing and proofing process. You'll be glad you did. Good luck to you, Jennifer Skinnell.
Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Shonda Ramsey. For the show notes and links, head over to shondaramsey.com and don't forget to join in on the conversations on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a show and write a review where you listen to podcasts. Until next time, always remember, every writer deserves to see their words in print.